Okay, everybody, welcome to this afternoon's session on unschooling for STEM careers. If you're wondering what STEM is, it stands for science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. So that's STEM. And thank you so much for coming, sharing your afternoon with me. I live in Canada, where the kids ride polar bears to school. Just kidding. Just kidding, but they don't really, but they, my kids tell all their cousins that from Australia and around the world. So it is super cold, but I love Canada because it's bright, sunny, absolute blue sky. And then you go outside and it's minus 35 and it just bites at your face. So it's a lovely place to live if you can handle the cold. Okay.
I'm on the West Coast, however, so none of that applies.
Right. That's Terry Stafford, who I have known for so many years. Terry, wow, you have been my mentor for so many years, I have to say. And I'm so glad I listened to you.
Where did you listen to me? I don't recall. You would.
Well, we were on the old homeschooling HSCA in on a Yahoo groups at that time, right?
Oh, right.
So long time ago. Yeah. Okay. What I'm going to do is I'm going to ask everyone to mute their microphones, and I'm going to blabber on for an hour because I have a lot to talk about. And then I will open it up for questions at the end. And I know as an audience person, I hate it when they don't leave enough time for questions. So I will be sure to leave enough time for questions. I think I can go to 2 o'clock. So I will definitely stop and give you 15 minutes of questions. Okay. So, so this is me. I'm Judy Arnall, and I actually teach brain and child development. That's my work life for health organizations. And yeah, and I'm certified in the brain story, which is where a lot of material comes from. And I'm also certified in the growing brain from 0 to 3. And I've written books. I am mostly totally non-punitive parenting. And that has spilled over into non-punitive education. I just can't reconcile one without the other. So when I taught child development, I did facilitated parenting groups for 23 years, and I wrote a few books on how to do non-punitive parenting. So my claim to fame is I raised 5 kids without punishing them at all. During the teen years, I didn't take away phones. I didn't take doors off their rooms. We problem solved everything, which was really, really good. So, and then some of those books have been translated into different languages. And then when my kids started going off to post-secondary after multiple years of unschooling, I decided to write a book too, because a lot of their friends went and off to university when they were unschooling too. So that's my latest book, is Unschooling to University. I started Unschooling Canada Association, which is a nonprofit, at about 6 years ago now. And we just have a whole lot of information on our website. We were incredibly popular this summer as parents decided they didn't want to send their kids back into the classroom with what was happening. Please join the Facebook group, Unschooling STEM. These are topics where we talk about mathematics. Will they learn the multiplication tables? When will they? Do they need to? Topics that are important to people, especially around those careers. I decided to focus on STEM because I have 4 kids bent on STEM careers. And I think it's important for people when they look at unschooling. There's not a lot out there yet on unschooling STEM. And I don't want them to feel that if they unschool their children, they are closing doors. Not so. STEM is a very popular career choice. It's very lucrative, it's growing for the future, and a lot of parents feel that they may be shutting their children's doors, and I want to assure them that they absolutely are not. And hopefully through today's slides, they'll become a little more convinced. I have a blog too called Unschooling to University, where I write about things like letting my kids play with fire that I wouldn't put in a book, just because I can't take that back. So I want you to know we love teachers. I think teachers are the best part of school systems. They are, they forge relationships with children, and the more relationships, the better. And I love learning. A lot of us feel it's the system that's problematic. And many of us, after banging our heads against the wall for years and years, trying to change the system from within, have walked with our feet and taken our funding and gone to other alternative education ideas, such as homeschooling and unschooling. Okay, so what's the problem? Let's start with the problem. What do children bring to school, and when do they lose it? This is my engineer and my bioscience person. And these are all the things I saw them display on their first day of kindergarten. I pulled my kids out of school when the oldest was going into grade 3, because in 2 years, I saw them lose all of this. They lost their love of learning. And the thing about science and technology and STEM careers is kids have to wonder what if. That's the big questions. What if I set this on fire? What if I pour water on this? And at this age, when they're 5, well, actually from their birth to age 6, they're like, let's find out. And that curiosity and creativity shines through. But after a while, if you send them to an institution, it gets stamped out under conformity and guidelines and rules and institutional methodology. So that by the time they're 15, they think, well, they don't care anymore. They say, well, who cares? Let's not find out. Let's do something else. And that's what bothers me, that we lost. We lost somewhere between 5 and 15. Kids care more about partying than polynomials. And they need that curiosity and creativity. Those are 2 elements for finding passion in STEM careers. The other problem is the high school dropout rate can vary anywhere worldwide from 20 to 80%. That to me is a problem too, in that that's about 1 in 5 brains we are not utilizing to make our future better. Now, I'm not saying dropping out means that those kids aren't going on to self-study. What it says to me and speaks to us is that something's not working in high school the way it is now, and it needs reform. I would say my kids are all dropouts too, because at some point in time, they all went back for like 2 days to 2 weeks and decided, nah, it takes too much of my time. So yes, I have 5 high school dropouts too, except the 2 youngest, they never ever went. So what's the solution? The key to engaged thinkers is relevancy. It has to fulfill their needs, what they're motivated to learn at that time. And self-directed education fills those curiosity and creativity needs. So that when they're 2, they're intensely curious. Anyone with a toddler and preschooler are driven crazy with asking all their questions. So let's keep that going, that when they're 18, that curiosity continues. And we live in a great time now. Content is at our fingertips. What we need is more alternative methodologies of delivering education. And look at all the places we can learn. School is down here on the bottom of the list. That is one place of many places that we learn today, especially with the internet. And students are borderless. Now, children can learn from any course anywhere in the world. And I think the future is going to be improving qualifications. Boundaries and regulations become less important, And children are going to continue to learn. We can't force them to learn, and we can't stop them from learning. It's a brain process. So for those of you new to unschooling, what is it? It's a philosophy and lifestyle of educational freedom in which a child's natural curiosity, creativity, and motivation, nurtured in a stimulating environment, will lead the child to learn what he or she needs to know in the time frame he or she needs it. Not our agenda, the learner agenda. So this is a typical 2 tracks that children go on. One, the school child, and the other one, the unschooled child. So from birth to age 5, we're all unschoolers. We facilitate our children's education. We notice that they like puppies, so we get them a puppy. We notice that they love going to the zoo, so we buy a zoo pass and take them to the zoo often. We unschool until the day they have 6 candles on their birthday cake. And then we say, you can't play anymore. You have to go to school and learn. Where unschoolers just continue on playing, doing projects, reading, whatever they determine is necessary. So what happens is a lot of unschoolers still learn what kids learn in school, but they learn it in a different way. They're on the play track rather than the sit down and learn through textbooks track. And what happens is a lot of times in the later teen years, children who have unschooled may want to gather some credentials to go on to universities, colleges, post-secondaries. So they're more willing to jump through a few hoops to get qualifications and credentials. So unschooling is like a buffet, and a child's standing there with a plate, and nobody is saying what they put on their plate, how much, or even if they put it on their plate. That's what unschooling is. It is totally learner driven. They decide what they want to learn, when they want to learn, how they want to learn, from where they want to learn, and even if that's a topic they want to learn. Most self-directed schools only allow the learner to choose the pace, not the content. What's required from you as an adult? 3 components. Kids can't often get things they need, so they need a facilitator. They need abundant resources, and they need abundant, unstructured, free time. Now, resources can be as basic as a library card and the internet, or like our house, we have so many toys and games that it's just overwhelming sometimes. So it doesn't have to be a lot of money to structure an environment. So basically, it's so simple. How to unschool is providing lots of time and offering things. And you wonder why I wrote a 384-page book on unschooling if it's that simple. What is not simple is a lot of the uneasiness that parents feel about unschooling. So what do kids do all day? When you tell this to relatives, they're like, well, what do they do? These are what they do. They do all these things, and they decide what they're going to do each day, if they're going to do all the things or one of the things, or if they're going to, do one of the things for months on end. It's all their choice. Now, what are the benefits? There are a lot of benefits of unschooling. I'm not going to go through them. I have 61 benefits in the book, Unschooling to University. Each type is a chapter. And but what I will do is kind of hit the highlights here. First, for teachers, anybody in a school environment, you know that motivation is the biggest problem. I've been doing teachers conventions this past 3 weeks, and so many workshops on motivating kids to learn. But in unschooling, if you empower them to learn whatever they want to learn, it's never a problem. The child is always developmentally ready because they determine what they want to learn and play. And absorption is really high because they're interested in it. They don't have learning anxieties. And they memorize. They don't memorize, they understand rather than memorize. They develop independent learning and self-reliance. They learn how to get information rather than being spoon-fed. You don't have to do any lesson plans, yay! And the biggest one is no power struggles. And a love of learning for its intrinsic value is developed, not for pizza coupons. They learn creativity, initiative, decision-making, and it covers all learning styles. So this is my son. We went to a museum in Vietnam on the Vietnam War and the disbursement of Agent Orange and the effects that is still affecting kids today. That was so much more meaningful for him to have it, taught to him at a later age than an earlier age, and more in person through travel rather than a textbook. So at this point, I ask people, if I'm doing this live, name a career. And let's say you're 17-year-olds in the basement playing Fortnite and comes up to you and says, Mom, I think I want to be a blank. Okay. When I do this workshop, most often I get doctor. So what are you going to do with that 17-year-old now that he wants to be a doctor? Well, a doctor needs a first degree before medical school. And the first degree can be in anything. But that 17-year-old starting from no formal education will probably need about 2 years preparation. They might need, so in Canada, definitely, you do not need a high school diploma to go to any of the universities. The major universities, you need 5 grade 12 courses. So for this 17-year-old to pick that up, it would take about 2 years for a grade 12 English course, grade 12 social or history course, grade 11, grade 12 chemistry, biology, and maybe high school math. And a lot of high school math courses now are offering a prep for high school math course. I would advise taking that one. And that's it. Then they get into their first degree with good marks, and then they go on and apply for medical school. Now, a lot of parents ask me, well, whoa, how can they cram 10 grades into one when they start math in high school? And I say they're not starting math from grade 1 when they're 17 years old. They can do high school math in 2 years because their brain's ready. It's developed the prefrontal cortex and the understanding is faster, super fast. So I'll pose you a question. Can a 3-year-old play chess? No. Can a 7-year-old play chess? Yes, right? Because chess involves the prefrontal cortex, which shows you this development of the prefrontal cortex and what we call executive function. And executive function has 4 components: working memory, focus, self-control, and planning. And chess requires all 4 of those components. But you can see from birth to about age 17, there are 2 sensitive periods where that development takes a big leap, from age 3 to 5 and from 13 to 25. And that last big leap is at about age 17. And anecdotal evidence is not research-based, but for myself and my friends, we found a lot of our 17, 18, 19-year-olds, once they saw their friends were embarking on a career or planning for a career, they thought they should do something too. And it kind of put them into action to decide what they wanted to do for the rest of their life to earn a living. And you can see that here. It is rooted in brain development. So, and experiential learning. So all that learning up until here, if you start theoretical learning here, all that learning here is experiential learning, and it serves well. It lays a foundation of understanding. This is my son. He loved those little door knockers, those door stoppers. And he would lie down on his stomach and he'd twang those things over and over again. He loved the sound. He loved the action. And then when he was 24, he wrote me an email. He said, "Hey, Mom, these days I'm doing analysis on oscillating machines, like a door stopper. You know, the spring ones where you pull it to the side and it goes doing. Who'd have thought I'd been doing the same thing in school as I was doing 22 years ago?" And that was his third year engineering class, right? So that's him learning it on paper. This is him learning it in action. It builds. So I'm going to just briefly tell you about our story. I have 5 kids, and the oldest 2 were in school when I pulled them out. They were grade 2, grade 1. And it's because their learning needs weren't really met in school. My son wanted to know, if you planted an egg, would it grow an egg tree? Excuse me. And I said, wait till you're in biology and we'll do it then. Well, sorry. Well, he nagged me and nagged me and nagged me. He'd come home from school and nag me to plant an egg. So we did. And we waited 2 weeks and nothing grew. But more and more, my kids would go to school and then come home and learn what they really wanted to learn. And we were doing after schooling. And I thought, this is crazy. Why don't we just spend the better part of our days, you know, when they're not so cranky at 4 o'clock, learning what they want to learn? So I pulled them out and we did homeschooling. Well, 3 months later, they stopped listening to me. As you can see, my engineer wrote on his grade 2 math book, "I hate mathematics." So it wasn't working. So I was yelling more and more, and I became the person I did not want to become, the punitive parent. And I would threaten them that if they didn't do their work, they'd be going back to school, and our relationship suffered. So more and more, and I also had a preschooler underfoot and a baby on the way. So more and more, we never got around to homeschooling. We slid into unschooling. And for the next 10 years, they played, did so much play. And it was so much fun. We played, we traveled, we went on field trips, we raised another 2 children. It was so much fun until they started contemplating high school. And even in high school, they did a self-directed approach. So they did high school through homeschooling, but they either wanted tutors, or they did an online course here and there, or they just got the textbooks and taught themselves, because biology is biology, where anywhere in the world, it's the same material. So it's definitely doable outside of the system. And because I kept on working and I teach adults, teaching adults is all about unschooling. James Draper and Malcolm Knowles is the experts on adult learning and education. For adults, they call it andragogy. For children, they call it pedagogy. And it's a difference between self-directed learning and instructional teacher-directed learning. And we tend to say kids can't learn themselves, but we know that's not true. And more, I was questioning that, because before my eyes, I was seeing my kids were learning through play and through self-education. So in our province, they write grade 12 diploma exams. They wrote 23 of diploma exams. Over about 2/3 of the exams were STEM subjects, and they got an average of 78%, where our provincial average on those exams is 65%. They're all got scholarships, and 4 kids went on to university. 3 graduated. 3 were in STEM careers, so engineering, bioscience, and chemistry. 1 went into humanities, and right now I have a master's student, and my final child is considering a STEM career because he did his first math course in high school and got 88%. So he's thinking, this is pretty good. And like I said, when all their friends were going off to university and colleges and post-secondary schools, it was like, I got to write this book because this information is not getting out there. Kids can learn without school. It's amazing. So in the book, we follow 30 kids. They all unschooled 3 to 12 years. They were accepted to college, tech, and universities. 22 have already graduated. Actually, 24 have. 2 have gone on to masters. And of those 30 kids, 10 were in STEM. We had 4 engineers in the group, 10 in humanities, and 10 went into the arts. So very, very successful, happy children. And even if they don't go on to post-secondary, many unschoolers work in STEM in their own entrepreneurial companies, which is fabulous, right? They're getting snapped up and doing a lot of work in the digital companies. So let's look at unschooling STEM through the age groups. What does this look like at different ages? And what can you do? So I love this quote from Dr. Thomas Armstrong. Human development research should inform educational practice. And we know so much more about brains now in the last 10 to 15 years. 49 neurosciences scientists got together across North America to do research, and they put it into a course you can take for free online now called the Brain Story course. You can get certified, you can understand how the brain works, how children learn, the impact of addictions if you're worried about screen time. It's a fabulous course, and really it should inform educational practice. Hasn't yet. It's going through health and education sectors and justice and government and policy, but it's not widespread across the world yet. So these are brain cells, they're neurons. And these fat ends, this is the axon, and these are the axon terminals, and these little tiny ends are the dendrites. And this is what learning does. A child will experience something, learn something, and the dendrites and axons, they have gaps between them. See this? So they send neurotransmitters across the gaps and form a pathway. And that pathway is learning, so that when a child is born, they have minimal neurons connected just to keep their motor skills going, their breathing, their heart rate. But for the most part, they're not connected. But whoa, look what happens at age 6. From birth to age 6, they have so many pathways. The kids are little sponges just soaking up everything. And you lose it if you don't use it. So by age 15, a lot of things are pruned that children don't do anymore. Let's say they were in French immersion school. You pull them out at age 10. By age 15, they probably don't remember much French anymore if they don't use it on a daily basis. But this is good. Pruning is good because it strengthens those pathways that are already there and makes the brain stronger and healthier. So if you wonder, how many of us remember how to factor trinomials? If we didn't use it since age 7, we don't remember, unless we use it in our daily work, right? But now we can look it up on the internet and find not only how to factor it, but there's apps out there to show you how to do it, which is great. I want to show you this film. So this is a neighboring dendrite. See here, this little long thing. This is a nerve cell, the neuron cell body here. This is a neighboring axon. So the dendrite's going to reach out to the axon, and you're going to see that neurotransmitter go over. Right there. Look, there it comes down. Boo. There's that neurotransmitter, and these connections are awesome. This is learning in action. Now, this happens whether a child is doing a math worksheet or playing a video game. It's all the same. It's establishing brain connections and growing the brain. So play grows brain connections just as much as workbooks do. So children's brains are developing appropriately all through their childhood when they unschool. This is what play looks like when children are age 0 to 13. This is what play looks like 13 and up, and they're still developing those connections between their brain cells. So play is fabulous. It develops all these wonderful skills. I'm not going to go through them because you can, they're pretty well established. It develops cognitive and language skills. And the best types of play is play that lets kids use their imaginations, that creativity, make decisions so they feel confident, and explore their surroundings. So let's look at development through the ages. Let's look at how children develop. They develop in 4 domains: physical, cognitive, social, emotional. And the brain develops from the bottom to the top, from the back to the front. So you can tell right here, the most developed of the brain is the cerebellum and the brainstem. That's what babies have really good. And the occipital lobe, because babies at age 3 months can see all across the room. The temporal lobe is more developed in toddlers, the parietal lobe in preschoolers, the frontal lobe in school-age children, and the prefrontal lobe in adolescents. Now, the question begs is, if your child has a propensity towards STEM, do you think that's biology or socialization? Could be both. Could be both. My daughter wrote, for fun, a grade 3 math exam. And this is age 8. 70% of the questions had a boy as the problem, worded in the problem. It was a male. And she noticed that. So what does that say to her as a girl about math? It's pretty neat. Okay, so this kind of shows you what areas develop or are more sensitive at different ages. Now, that doesn't mean that the whole brain doesn't work together. It does, but this is what occurs in development when a child grows. And it kind of follows this chart of the prefrontal cortex development too, right? So it develops all the way this way, okay? So babies, this is what they do. The cerebellum, the brainstem, mostly gross motor is what is developing at this age, right? So they feel sensory input and they cry. That's their output. But they learn how to crawl and walk all on their own. Nobody teaches them. It's the development of this bottom brain functions. So what's baby STEM education? Learn child development. Make sure you talk, read, sing, engage baby, and serve and return responses to develop their language, because that first year is a huge leap in language development. You as an adult are their best toy. Now, there's a lot. Everyone's on the STEM marketing thing, right? You can go to the baby section of Babies R Us and find all these baby toys that will develop their STEM education. Marketing. Don't waste your money. Babies love cardboard boxes. Just as good. Still, sends those neurotransmitters down those brain cells. Young toddlers, at this age, they're exploring like crazy, and they're building security with their adults. And they learn to walk. We don't teach children how to walk. It's a development of their brain. So older toddlers, they're more into the feeling stage, so that the middle temporal region there is very much becoming developed. So, and their emotions are gross motor, but also talking. They learn to talk. And we don't teach them how to talk. They copy us. They look at their surroundings and learn to talk. Okay, and this is what older toddlers are like. I'm not going to spend too much time on this. I cover this in my book. So we don't teach them how to talk. Toddler STEM education, free play, more so than guided play or direct instruction. Toddlers should play freely. Multi-sensory experiences through their 5 senses: hearing, seeing, smelling, tasting, everything. Child-proof and redirect. In Canada, the recommendations are no screen time for 2 and under, and about 1 hour a day for 3 and up. Here's the sensitive periods of brain development for language, especially for language, and it's from 0 to age 5, huge. So keep talking to them. Preschoolers, age 3 to 5, this is where they take that huge leap, right? Right here in executive function. So a 3-year-old, you tell them to do something, they don't listen. 5-year-old, you tell them to do something, they have a bit more self-control. So this is the part of the brain, think preschooler parietal. This is language, attention, sensory processing. And they learn to use the toilet all by themselves. You don't have to teach if you wait until they're ready. And this is what they're like. Okay. And anyone under age 5, they need a lot of sensory experiences. Anything that touches their hearing, seeing, their touch, their smell, their taste is good learning for them. These are excellent play materials for children under age 13. The ones on the left-hand side are very open-ended. They build creativity because they can combine them in different ways. The ones on the right are very one way you play with them, not very conducive to creativity. So if you want to encourage creativity in your children, get them a lot of open-ended play materials that they can combine and add energy to. You want things that have no age guidelines on them. Remember cushions from sofas? They're so much fun, especially with sheets, right? So kids can build any number of things, and they're so creative when you give them the materials. As they head into teenagerhood, they become more content creators than consumers, but it tends to be more digital rather than in the physical world. So these are all great play materials. Wonderful things. This was our little busy bag on the go thing. So we'd be waiting in airports and we'd have like a deck of cards, dice, things that, you don't want to keep them on screens too much, but for young children, these are things you can have handy to keep them busy. Pipe cleaners, Play-Doh. So STEM education for preschoolers, again, a lot of free play, multi-sensory experiences, adult talking, encourage their curiosity, mixed mediums. So my kids would take Play-Doh and make patties and put them in the sandbox and introduce them to the kitchen, baking, wonderful things to do with preschoolers. And here's the nurture part. Get your boys toy kitchens and dolls because they're going to end up becoming bakers and obstetricians. Get your girls microscopes and drones because they're going to end up becoming scientists and engineers. So free play for everyone. Don't distinguish along gender lines. Science is all around us. One of the best times we had was when we cut down a tree and our yard was full of dirt. And when it rained, it was even better. It was mud. Kids had so much fun building little cities and pathways, and their parents weren't too happy when we sent them home, but they had a lot of fun. And science is all around us. One thing I do is I put a big, we still have our map in our house. And whenever we see things on the news, now that we're all adults, we go and figure out where it's happening in the world. And the other thing I did was I put a timeline in our living room from dinosaurs to modern age so that the kids could kind of see what was happening at what time. That's still up too. They won't let me take it down. But science causes problems when you are forced to do it, when kids have to do the science fair. That is when they turn off their love of science. So school agers, what's happening in their brain at this stage? So this stage is the frontal lobe. This is where they start understanding consequences. They're starting to understand learning, but it still has to be tangible. It has to be in their world. So what I noticed was a lot of my children's interests during age 6 to 12 corresponded with the government curriculum. Things like colors, flying, wetlands, rocks and minerals, the water cycle, things that they can see and play with, right? And all my kids learned how to write and do basic arithmetic without direct instruction. They just did it through curiosity and wanting to learn. So this is what school agers are really like. Those are the wonderful years. And they're still learning through their 5 senses, but not so much putting things in their mouths anymore. We're talking about it, right? And what can you do to facilitate STEM here? Books, internet, gaming, yes. Hands-on activities, yes. Free play, yes. Lots of adult conversations. Make time for that. Help them to get the things they can't get. At this age, they don't have money, they don't have car. Printers, microscopes, telescopes, 3D printers, anything they want. If you can get them secondhand, even better. Go for lots of walks in nature, play open-ended games like chess. Get them appliances to take part. Join maker groups. Get them in the kitchen, the workshop, the sewing room, the garden. Can't see that bottom one there. Have a craft cupboard that they can make things. Get lots of, not kits, but just loose Lego, loose connects, things that they can make without being told what to make. And don't forget zoos, aquariums, and science centers. Awesome places. We go to all of them when we travel. Here's some more things. Get some pets if you want. They're just living biology. Teach them how to do chores. It teaches them how things work. Have some clubs, host some clubs, Minecraft, Lego, coding clubs, and allow supervised, safe exploration of water, dirt, fire, metal, and wood. I have lots on my blog about this. Emphasizes safety. A lot of parents say, should I sign them up for STEM classes? My kids, they said they didn't like STEM classes because it was too prescriptive. They had to make certain things. They couldn't meander. They couldn't experiment. They couldn't explore. They had to hand over control, and that stunted their STEM education. So in my book, I talk about the things that they can use to, other than workbooks, things to learn. And this is on the blog too, in science, through books, computer games, toys, or board games. And we have that in mathematics too. So that's up on the website at unschoolingtouniversity.com. Your attitude matters too. You can make or break STEM curiosity and creativity. It helps if you say yes as much as possible, if you tolerate a bit of mess, but of course, teach them how to clean up because eventually they know and they'll do it themselves. It's really important not to fix their creations. Let them own their projects from beginning to end. I see this all the time at kids' workshops. Parents want the perfect thing and they take over. They nudge the kids out of the way. And approach mistakes as learning opportunities. Avoid punishment because punishment shuts down what if? What if? And those are important questions. So at this age, they learn to read. We don't teach it. Every child learns to read. I had some early readers and late readers. And eventually, this is the age they started reading at. Guess which one was the English major? They all learned to read eventually because their brain just worked together. The hippocampus and the prefrontal cortex and the occipital lobe all started working together and they started to read. And my 10-year-old non-reader, a year later, he was reading this. You can't tell by your child's reading now what ages they started, kind of like toilet training. This is my 20-year-old. He learned to write. Like all my kids were digital, so they didn't handwrite at all, which was a bit of a handicap when they went to university because they had to do their timed exams by hand, no computer. But he decided it was a need to learn cursive. And 3 months later, this was what his writing looked like then. So when the learner needs it, the learner will do it. Teenagers. Okay, this is the last group. Now, the prefrontal cortex is this part right here. Think of puberty, prefrontal. Frontal lobe, I thought of first grade frontal lobe, but PMP, puberty. This is where they get their abstract and theoretical thinking skills. And this is where they learn to do essays and mathematics. Some may need tutoring help, but some can learn themselves from books. And that is this last little bit, the big leap in that prefrontal cortex. By the way, by 25, your brain's at its peak. So if you're older than 25, it's kind of going downhill. So teenagers, again, if they can learn things through their 5 senses, all the better. Like I said, traveling and going to a museum and being immersed in things is way better than reading things through a book. But they can do that. They're very okay to learn through books. They learn to analyze, critical thinking. They can do everything in about 3 years of high school. Math is solving everyday problems. They can learn math too, but at higher order math. And I found grade 8 in Canada. Grade 8 was a good course to pivot from experiential math, which is all around us, to paper. So my kids took one junior high school course, so one course as a preparation for high school math. And they learned everything they needed, all these skills here. They learned through play, right? They knew what multiplying was. They knew what common factors were. What they didn't know was how to figure it out on paper. So through their one math prep course, they learned how to do it on paper. More things I learned through play. And this is on my blog too, is ways to learn math without a workbook. Tells you what you can buy, what games teach these things. And then at 13, they were ready for more abstract concepts like the Pythagorean theorem, right? This was a really good 3D thing. You could turn this around, this whole thing around, and this is water. And you could see how these two squares filled this one with water and vice versa. So it was very experiential learning, but it helps them with their abstract paper concepts. So by age 13, kids have abstract thinking. And abstract thinking is knowing concepts without it in front of you, without the tangible experience of it. You can think about it. So things like religion, death, algebra, variables, higher math, all those things, theories. And yes. Now, look at this. This is my son. He took his first high school course. He did a math preparation course. And look how bad his numbers were. They don't fit anywhere. They're not lined up. And then at day 60, look how nice and neat they are. When they want to learn, it will come. It absolutely will come. So STEM education for teenagers, again, a lot of the things before, but now a few more things like internet lectures, Khan Academy, self-education research, projects, again, conversations, writing more essays, entering essay contests, do the Ayn Rand essay contest, blogs, gaming, they make memes, structured experiments, learning the scientific method. And again, they're still going to need probably your help to get parts and to acquire things, but and maybe to pay for more formal courses if they wanted, tutors and instructors. So that's how you can help facilitate your teenager STEM education. And then the brain doesn't stop, it goes to 25. Music lessons, we found my kids were most conducive to music lessons in the late teens to the early 20s. That's when they wanted them. Same with languages. I have a child who's lived in Japan, is now in Germany, and speaks the language pretty well, all self-taught. Okay, now to the critical part. I also get this. What if they play video games all day? Well, this is great. This is my 4 kids. One day I said, all right, you guys, you have to get outside, get some exercise, get out there and play. And I sent them all outside. And I went to do some laundry and work. And I thought, gee, it's really quiet outside. So I look out the back door and they're all playing Wii through the patio glass window. Because look at them, those little cuties. Anyways, what if they play video games all day? They might do that. Mine did. I actually have one now who works for a major video game manufacturer. And there's nothing wrong with playing video games all day. Screen time can impact language development from ages 0 to 5. But from 5 on, when children can speak, there's no conclusive research that too much screen time is bad. In fact, the recommendations keep increasing every year. Now, isn't it an addiction? When children have lots of screen time, if they live in a nurturing, healthy home, they're not going to develop addiction tendencies. Addictions tends to come from children or occur in children who grow up in a toxic home life where there's a lot of adverse childhood experiences. That's what science tells us. That is, and even then, we still don't know how that addiction gene expresses and what has caused that expression. We still don't know that. But we know generally if children grow up in a healthy environment where there's caring relationships, no matter how much screen time they play, they won't have addiction problems later on, and they won't have learning problems. I know this is a big topic. Yes, a lot of them develop behavior problems when you turn it off, but it's because a lot of the games are very compelling and they love them. They love them. What does video games develop? A lot of things. Now, having said that, I have to say, if you also, balance is important. So if you still have time, if they do a lot of screen time, you have a lot of rich language and conversations and tech-free times and exercise, sociable mean times without screens, and healthy sleep hygiene practices, you're doing great. They're getting everything they need to be healthy, no matter the screen time. Now, esports is a global billion-dollar revenue industry, and it needs STEM. And it's the future. Video game, there's a lot of research that shows that video gaming gives kids the skills that lead to STEM careers in programming, engineering, and the massive growing sector of cybersecurity. Absolutely. So gaming's good. All games teach STEM skills: problem solving, creativity, innovation, coding, math. And it spilled over to the arts too. My kids would make puppets of their favorite game characters, costumes, draw pictures, write stories, very creative. It builds executive function skills of attention, planning, organizing, patience, critical thinking, emotion management, anger management. It teaches coding through, look at STEAM workshops. That's a community of game modders. Grail used to be wonderful for scripting and mods, and Minecraft. They also build people skills, empathy for group games when kids are involved in group games and their guilds and teams, competence, connection, autonomy, teamwork, cooperation, communication, conflict resolution. I have all these on my blog too, and I devote a whole chapter in the book, so it's okay. Age appropriateness is key. And instead of trying to get your boys off gaming, get your girls on gaming. They can develop all those STEM skills too. And it is socialization. Is it biology or socialization? Why do girls not embrace STEM careers as much? Or it's because they don't video game much? I mean, look at, if you go into the toy store and you look at all the games marketed to girls, right? Their games are usually how to decorate or how to caregive. Boys' games marketed to them are usually missions and solving problems. And yet we need both. We need both, all genders, to do all those skills. And we have to counteract media. You can't be what you can't see, says Marian Wright Edelman. This was an ad for STEM. How many boys are in this picture? 6. How many girls? 1. This picture is an ad for STEM. The boys doing, the girls observing, right? Girls need to see more of them out there in STEM careers. They need to be building their gaming computers and coding. Okay, so higher STEM, kids can either learn through direct instruction or self-teaching. Either way, they do not even have to do a formal high school. They can self-teach biology, chemistry, mathematics, and then write the SATs for entrance into post-secondaries. So just remember, the brain is where it's at. I'm wrapping up now. At 1 year, they learn to walk on their own. 3 years, they learn to talk on their own. 7 years, they learn to read, print, do arithmetic. They learn the times tables and keyboarding. 13 years, they can write, do mathematics, code, do spreadsheets and game mod. And 15 to 20 years, they're ready for more formal instruction or self-taught. Absolutely. So, can play replace school? Yes, it can. I want to finish with this poem. This is my favorite. I tried to teach my child with words. They often passed him by unheard. I tried to teach my child with books. He only gave me puzzled looks. Despairingly, I turned aside. How can I teach this child? I cried. Into my hand, he placed the key. Come, he said, and play with me. And that's anonymous, by anonymous. So, keep in touch with me. If you would like a handout of the ages and stages of what kids are capable of each different age, feel free to email me. I'm at jarnall@shaw.ca. If you want to order the books, if you're in Canada or North America, you can order 2 unschooling books. We have a buy a book, give a book deal going on now for $40. I will send you both books. And check me out. I'm all over the internet. So I want to thank you for joining me this afternoon, and I would be so happy to take questions. So I wonder how I'll do this. I will probably stop the recording right now.
To American University.
That's a good question. So
my son's school does that. They send them to Athabasca. You just get the general degree there, and then you go on to your master's wherever you want.
Mm.
Yeah. I do a whole, like in the book, I outline 14 ways to get into university, right? A diploma is one of them. But what a lot of kids do is do open studies and get options that way, and then transfer into a university degree program. Now, I would only suggest that route if the kids are not going to party away the first year. I had one child party away the first year and then couldn't transfer over. So they have to be ready to go, right? But yes, community colleges, open studies is good. Just challenging grade 12 exams. So once they feel they've done enough prep, they've did practice exams, they've learned the material, they can go do, in Alberta, anybody can write a diploma exam at age 19. And it counts for 100%, and it's accepted in all across North America. In fact, the universities don't even know you didn't do the course or the previous 11 grades. So like I say, the emphasis now is going to be more on proving qualifications rather than did you do a course, did you do high school kind of thing. Do you have what it takes to get into this program pretty well?
It seems like age doesn't even matter anymore too, because I just saw make sure she's not in the room. My 55-year-old friend got her teaching certification without going to teacher ed because I wrote a letter to the BC teacher qualification.
Thank you so much, Judy. That was just very enjoyable.
I like Lynn Lisa's comment there that you don't have to be successful in STEM that way. And that's true. I got a job out of California without going to university to be an engineer.
Absolutely. Great. Thank you. I'm going to see you.
You need to do something to turn this over to you again.
No, no, that's okay. I can end it for everyone.
Okay. Great.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.